Welcome back to my channel. My name is Lisa. This is Life Coaching Series. This is actually a continuation of video 4, so this is part 2 of that video 4 that I created. And just wanted to reiterate what I talked about in that video. That was in relations to setting micro goals daily, having, goals that were set for, let's say, daily goals, monthly goals, 3-month, 6-month, 5-year, 1-year, 10-year goals, that kind of thing. So get a rough idea of what that looks like for you. But if it's too much, you don't have a lot of time, just start with the daily goals. And then you want to look at your habits. You want to look at your values and your belief systems, because if they aren't clear enough and you're not really in touch with that part of yourself, you're going to have a hard time committing to your ultimate goal. So the intention of this exercise is to learn how to identify exactly what you're looking at from a goal, what it is that it gives back to you, what's in it for you. So the whole point of goal setting is to deconstruct yourself, ask the right questions so that you actually are aware of where your blockages are or potential areas that you might find you're stuck. So a lot of times when a person feels that they're stuck, they think it's because the goal wasn't interesting enough. And in actual fact, it could really be that you just don't feel you can commit because you don't feel you're strong enough, good enough, smart enough, whatever the case might be. So there's a whole bunch of other little micro areas to look at. So let's use an example of relationships, or familial relationships, because that's relevant for all of us. In some light. This is not entirely a goal within your control, as it does involve other people. So they have their own timeline, their own agenda for their lives, their own goals, and the only thing that you can control is yourself. So you need to know what elements you can control in relation to relationships. So the goal, again, is not specific enough. And I break it down like this. Being closer to a person may mean spending more time together watching television. To another person, of course, it could be going on holiday, physically going off to Hawaii and spending time together, relaxing. It could also be that someone else sees it as an opportunity to communicate more openly, involves that gamut of emotions and vulnerabilities being explored. And so you have to really know the questions, the habits of what you have done to create a healthy or an unhealthy relationship in business or in family or personal life. So again, look at your habits. Look at what you value. Are you being true to your values and true to your belief systems? If not, how can you tweak your picture so that you actually can keep things in line with that? So again, being aware of your values, your belief systems, keeping things clear and in alignment so it's congruent with your values. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself stymied and stuck, not able to move ahead. So here's my 16 points when exploring your goals. What are your beliefs around your goal? Do they compete with your current beliefs in your environment? And when I say that, I'm looking at relationship goals may conflict with financial goals, for example. And oftentimes there's a lot of overlap. So if it does compete, it does mean that there's going to be an issue down the road that you're going to have to look at. So you need to be able to break down your beliefs around each goal that you're trying to achieve. What beliefs support your goals and which ones hinder your progress? So apply this to your values as well, in whatever realms that looks like. So if you were to follow the balance wheel, the balance pie wheel would have one section saying this relates to physical, this section relates to cognitive, this section relates to my family, this section relates to my spiritual life, my emotional life, my personal, my social, my career path, my educational goals. Those are just some. There's an exhaustive list, but whatever's relevant for you. And you break down, let's say, roughly an approximation of how much time you're actually spending on your physical goals on a scale of 1 to 10. What are you actually spending on your physical goals? Let's say a 2. Do you want to be doing that as a 6? And so what are the steps you would need to take to get to that 6? Don't try to take on the world and take everything, all of these goals, and try to balance the wheel all at one time. That's not often how it works. You generally have to sacrifice a little bit to move ahead. And sometimes taking a couple of steps back helps you to reflect before you take the next steps forward. So again, don't feel every week you have to take on every one of those parts of the pie. You can do it, every couple of weeks, work on part that relates to your physical life or your cognitive life, applying yourself with your spiritual life, going to church or whatever it is that, is spiritual to you. So breaking down a rough approximation as to how much time you spend on each of parts of your life. And again, the rating scale is a helpful way of measuring that on a weekly basis. And it's a continual measurement that you can check in to find out if you're actually making progress. Number 2, know your values and the things that you consider important and useful, those things that have a major influence on your behavior and your attitudes. So, for example, integrity is a value, respect, dedication, hard work ethic, drive, discipline, accountability, competence, courage, wisdom, humility, empathy. The list is exhaustive. Sometimes if we don't see it within ourselves, if we take a look at somebody that we do admire, what are those traits, those values that we feel make a remarkable difference and you would like to also model in your own life. But overall, what do you value in yourself that you currently possess, and what do you feel you would need to acquire to become the person that you see at the end of your significant goal? And again, goals will constantly be evolving. There won't be just 2. There'll be, a pattern, but for the time of this video, you're going to be working on one specific goal, and you're going to try to look at who that person will be at the end. And again, what values would you need to possess to be that person? Number 3, reflect on what you currently, and where you are currently, and create 10 steps towards your goal each week. I'm just picking out a random number. You could create 3. Number 4, be aware of your self-talk. And as you come across problems and difficulties or hurdles, learn to draw out those 2 columns. So one section, indicating an unhealthy thought. It could be that you feel overwhelmed and you just don't feel that you're competent enough to achieve the goal. And then the healthy thought, well, I've been through this before. I'm not, I haven't taken on enough information to say that I can't sufficiently achieve it. So unhealthy thought versus healthy thought. And then number 5, decide on what you want. What does it look like, feel like? What emotions are you experiencing? How are you behaving? Where are you in that end picture, that end part of the goal that you set out from the beginning videos? A lot of times we feel things in our bodies first as we move through difficulties. So be aware of where you are feeling muscle tension, whether it's nausea, headaches, stomach upset. Where do you hold the tension? And then these will be areas that you need to continually focus on as you move towards your goals, because they will mount up. In relation to your vision of your goal, give it as much detail, add as many senses as you can to keep your vision clear. Think about where you find yourself emotionally going most of the day. Are you angry most of the time? Are you frustrated? Are you sad? Are you depressed? Because an angry person will continue to be angry every time they come across a challenge or an obstacle, and a person who tends to be sad will be more sad and depressed every time they're faced with an obstacle. So I'm surmising a little bit, but this is just roughly what your tendency or propensity will be. So again, you need to look at your self-talk. You need to resolve it. And when you're spending or consuming a great amount of time in resolving it, that's a slowdown period for you. You're not using your time efficiently. So as the old adage goes, get out of your own way, create the column. Healthy, unhealthy thought versus healthy thought. And just keep repeating that. You're creating a foundation. Every single time you repeat this, it is going to become more habitual, and it'll be more familiar territory. And that's what you want, is familiarity. So you're breaking down, you're deconstructing old patterns, old thoughts, old ideologies, old blockages. And again, as you come across obstacles, challenges, I'll continue to say to yourself, what's in it for me? Why did I want this goal in the first place? You know, you want to be able to talk yourself out of that negative place. So sometimes sort of separating yourself from your old self, say, what am I doing? This is something that I am capable of doing. I just don't have enough information. I just don't have enough resources. And then you can start to move ahead once you actually talk to yourself in a gentle way. You know, you don't have to reprimand yourself. That oftentimes can be destructive. So you want to remember to deconstruct problems and feelings. Number 6, think of a plan ABC or alternatives to overcoming your obstacles. When you're not in the midst of crisis, you're going to be able to be more resourceful, be more creative in overcoming problems to find solutions, and you can operate more freely. So as you're going down that journey, you can say to yourself, I find that I don't have enough time to achieve this goal. So how do you add an extra half hour? How do you become hyper-focused so that you are getting the best quality time from yourself instead of spending half an hour watching that favorite program? You have to learn to redirect your focus. So number 7, were there any uncomfortable feelings that came up when you thought about your goal? So what beliefs do you hold around that uncomfortable part? And what were you thinking? Because again, your thoughts have power. So have you thought this way before? Reflect on your experience to be able to go forward. And how did it impact your progress as you move toward your goal? So sorry, begin to deconstruct your feelings and your thoughts as you move through each obstacle. Try not to overthink problems because that tends to make them bigger, and then you feel incapacitated, not able to move forward because you've grown it to become some kind of harrowing feat, that mountain that you can't climb, and really it's just something that's unfamiliar to you. Number 8, when you consider your self-talk, what do you feel are your must-haves or demands before you can achieve your goals? Things that you feel you want and need are very different and from a demand. A demand is something you feel you have to be able to have before you can act. And that is an unhealthy thought. It's not something that allows you to move ahead freely. So again, use your deconstruction process, healthy thought versus, or unhealthy thought versus healthy thought on a page. That always helps to clarify your objective. Number 9, what are your current habits? What habits will you need to acquire to achieve your goals? Number 10, what skills do you currently possess? What skills do you need to move ahead? What in an ideal world, what would be the most reasonable way to achieve those skills? And again, you're going to have to do some resourceful brainstorming to be able to come up with some of these answers. Don't think about how you're going to achieve it yet. Just think about the methods that you feel would help you to get toward the skill building. The skill building is really significant. Every time you change, jobs, or every time you're developing a new skill, and oftentimes we just see it as another job change, but it's really developing new skills to fit into a new situation. So number 11, are you prepared to make sacrifices to achieve your goals? Again, you can't have the same world that you had before to be able to move ahead into a new world. I mean, you're going from changing this person that you are. You may like a lot of aspects of yourself, which is fine. There's still core elements that you will always take with you. That's your values, your beliefs, and so on. But even those can change as you go through the process. But it's whatever you need to be strong in who you were needs to change to become stronger or more resourceful or more flexible or whatever it is to move to the next stage. So again, you have to be able to sacrifice parts of your old self to become the new self. And again, looking at models of people that are successfully doing things that you desire to do is a good example of some of those qualities or those traits that you need to break down, to isolate. So number 12, what supports you on your journey? What motivates you? Sometimes just listening to motivational videos in the morning just to get yourself inspired and keep you on track is a good way to start. I don't know that positive thinking does have some influence for sure, but I think a gratitude journal, knowing what you're thankful for and appreciative of, can help you to strengthen your resolve and support you on your journey if you don't have a lot of outside sources that are there to cheer you on. Number 13, what happens if you fail? So again, we tend to personalize failure and attribute it to our character, when in reality failure, if deconstructed, is appropriate learning to understand what works, what doesn't. You know, as a child, when you're trying to open up containers and you couldn't open it one way because it's childproof, then you learned as you became older, you push down on it and then you open it. So, I mean, again, just small baby steps. You still need to go through the process of failing to learn. But as they say, fail fast, move faster. So you want to do that as early as possible, as many failures as you can in the earlier stages, so that you are, moving up that chain a lot quicker as you advance in the higher realm. So if we were to seriously analyze what we perceive to be failure, were all the steps failed actions? Again, a lot of times we think, well, if we failed, the whole picture looks like failure, but it's really not. There was, oftentimes some partial achievement. It's just that maybe 3 or 4 elements down on the latter half of that picture didn't support the goal or the achievement that we were looking for. So what ratio of failure or margin of error are you comfortable with? Because you can't say to yourself, I'm going to achieve at all costs and nothing will stop me, and I don't allow myself to be anything less. It's important to have confidence for sure, but you also have to say, in the event of me being slowed down by this element, what am I going to do to get myself back on track? So do you need help? Do you need more resources? Do you need more time? You need to be able to break that down. Deconstruction, super important. So what emotions do you attach to failure? Because the second you start saying to yourself, I'm not competent enough to continue on with this, you've just demotivated yourself and you're putting yourself back several stages. So again, the second that thought comes in, you need to be able to counter it with something else. So again, as soon as that thought comes in, try to write it down on a sheet of paper, unhealthy thought versus healthy thought, and say, you know what, talk to yourself gently and say, everybody has a moment where they don't move ahead as quickly as they would like to, and so that's okay. It takes the time that it takes. How does it make you feel when you're moving toward a goal that encompasses some degree of failure? Because really it does show you where to tweak your plans, but how does it make you feel? Because again, as the feeling comes up, you need to be able to counter it with a healthy thought, because we all come with weaknesses. Number 14, use the SMART goal method: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based. So specific goals are what exactly do you want to achieve? Measurable, how will you know when you've achieved it? Again, keeping that weekly journal, very helpful. Attainable, is it something that you have control over? Only looking at the elements that you can control. The things you can't control are unknown variables, and so that may be where some failure takes place, and that's fine. You just have to get back on the bandwagon and try new perspective. So relevant. Why is it important to you? Why? What was the reason? What was in it for you? What was the reason for your motivation to begin the process towards your goal? Was it because when you started out, you were very unhappy, you were sitting at a 3 because you were frustrated and angry and you weren't able to achieve? Because that is not that should be a good motivator to move you toward the goal. Time-based, when do you want to achieve your goal? Again, these things they're variable. They're going to change as time goes along. Number 15, what is your time? What is your frame to complete your time frame to complete your goals? What does your 3-month plan look like? What does your 6-month plan look like? Your yearly goal, 5-year goal, 10-year goal. And of course, you do have your smaller micro goals all set up. So again, you're still making a habit of planning, and you're still resolute to the goal. So you need to be able to have steps that you can alter and tweak as you go along. So don't type anything out on, straight don't type anything out that's firm, because you're going to need to be able to change that or leave space on the page so that you can tweak it. So 16, gather information, plan, take small steps of action, know your elements of risk, have a strong sense of purpose. Remember to clarify where you are now, where you want to be, what are your thoughts about yourself now, and who do you need to become. What are your habits, and what are the habits that you need to repeat to make routine to achieve your goal? How do you feel emotionally about moving forward toward that goal, and what do you expect to feel like once you've achieved that goal? This gives you an idea into your own psyche about why you've chosen the goal, and what your underlying beliefs and motivations are. Oftentimes, what we value in others, as I mentioned, we wish to acquire in ourselves. So this was just a quick rundown of things to consider when you're making your list of goals. As we go through the goal setting process, you'll be able to flesh out your own questions and make greater strides toward accomplishing your goals. And the key is to make habit in repeating foundational core concepts. And once you become comfortable and habitual in processing that change, you will be faster at making those decisions, more confident in setting out toward action. And what matters is that we are willing to do what needs to be done. And are you willing to change from who you are now to who you need to become? Thanks for listening.